Welcome to an exploration of the fascinating scientific principles behind cheesemaking. Today we're going to dive deep into the chemistry, microbiology, and physics that transform simple milk into hundreds of different cheese varieties. Let's start with a fundamental question. What exactly is cheese? At its core, cheese is a concentrated form of milk, where proteins and fats are separated from the liquid whey through a process called coagulation. Milk contains approximately 87% water, 3.5% protein, primarily casein, 4% fat in the form of milk fat globules, and about 5% lactose sugar plus minerals like calcium. Understanding this composition is crucial because cheesemaking is all about concentrating these solids, particularly the proteins and fats, while removing most of the water. The central process in all cheesemaking is coagulation. This is where liquid milk transforms into a semi-solid gel. But how does this happen at the molecular level? Milk contains casein proteins in structures called micelles. These micelles are suspended in a liquid, kept apart by negative charges on their surfaces. When we add acid or rennet enzyme, these charges are neutralized, allowing the proteins to bond together into a three-dimensional network that traps water and fat, forming a gel we call curd. There are two primary methods to achieve coagulation: acid coagulation and enzymatic coagulation using rennet. Each method produces different cheese characteristics. Let's explore acid coagulation first. This is the simpler, more ancient method used for fresh cheeses like ricotta, paneer, and cottage cheese. When acid is added to milk, hydrogen ions neutralize the negative charges on casein micelles. The chemical reaction shows a carboxylate ion on the casein, accepting a proton to become a neutral carboxylic acid group. Normal milk has a pH of about 6.6. When we add acid, either directly as vinegar or lemon juice, or through bacterial fermentation of lactose, the pH drops to around 4.6, which is the isoelectric point of casein. At the isoelectric point, casein proteins have no net charge. Without electrostatic repulsion keeping them apart, they aggregate and precipitate out of solution, forming curds. Let's do a back-of-the-envelope calculation for making ricotta at home. Say we start with 1 liter of whole milk. We heat 1 liter of milk to about 85 degrees Celsius and add approximately 3 tablespoons of white vinegar or lemon juice. The acid causes immediate coagulation. The protein content is 3.5%, so we have 35 grams of protein. Acid coagulation captures about 70% of the protein, giving us roughly 24.5 grams of ricotta solids, plus some trapped fat and moisture, yielding about 150 to 200 grams of fresh ricotta. Now let's discuss enzymatic coagulation, which is more complex, and produces aged cheeses like cheddar, Parmesan, and mozzarella. This method uses rennet, which contains the enzyme chymosin. Chymosin is a protease enzyme that specifically cleaves kappa-casein, a protein that stabilizes casein micelles. When kappa-casein is cut, the micelles lose their protective coating and aggregate into a much firmer gel than acid produces. The kappa-casein forms hair-like projections from the micelle surface. Chymosin cuts these projections, removing the protective layer and exposing hydrophobic regions that cause the micelles to stick together. Rennet coagulation produces much stronger and more elastic curds than acid. The calcium bridges between the proteins create a network that can trap fat globules more effectively, which is essential for aged cheeses. Temperature plays a crucial role in coagulation kinetics. Let's examine why temperature matters so much in cheesemaking. The rate of enzymatic reactions follows the Arrhenius equation, where K is the rate constant, A is the frequency factor, EA is activation energy, R is the gas constant, and T is absolute temperature in Kelvin. For chymosin, the optimal temperature is between 40 and 42 degrees Celsius. Below 30 degrees, coagulation is too slow. Above 45 degrees, the enzyme begins to denature and lose activity. Here's an important question. Why do different cheeses require different coagulation temperatures? The answer relates to the desired texture and moisture content. Higher temperatures, around 38 to 40 degrees, produce firmer curds that expel more whey, creating harder cheeses like Parmesan. Lower temperatures, around 30 to 32 degrees, yield softer curds that retain more moisture, perfect for brie or camembert. Beyond coagulation, starter cultures are critical for developing flavor, texture, and safety. These are specific strains of bacteria added to milk before coagulation. The most common starter cultures are lactic acid bacteria, particularly Lactococcus lactis and Streptococcus thermophilus. These bacteria ferment lactose into lactic acid, lowering the pH. The fermentation reaction converts lactose, a disaccharide with formula C12H22O11, plus water into 4 molecules of lactic acid, C3H6O3. In a typical cheese-making process, starter cultures produce acid at a rate of about 0.1 to 0.2 picohenries units per hour. This controlled acidification is crucial for texture development and preventing spoilage bacteria. Once the milk has coagulated into a firm gel, the next step is cutting the curd. This is where physics comes into play in an interesting way. Cutting the curd into small pieces dramatically increases the surface area from which whey can escape. The curd is cut into cubes, typically ranging from 6 millimeters for soft cheeses to 3 millimeters for hard cheeses. The rate of whey expulsion follows Fick's law of diffusion and depends on the surface area to volume ratio. Smaller cubes have higher ratios and lose moisture faster. For a cube with side length d, the surface area to volume ratio equals 6 divided by d. So a 3 millimeter cube has double the ratio of a 6 millimeter cube, expelling whey twice as fast. Let's calculate this explicitly. For a 6 millimeter cube versus a 3 millimeter cube, what's the difference in surface area to volume ratio? A 6 millimeter cube, which is 0.6 centimeters, has a ratio of 10 per centimeter. A 3 millimeter cube has a ratio of 20 per centimeter, exactly double. This is why hard cheeses like Parmesan use very small curd pieces. They need to expel much more moisture to achieve their low final moisture content of around 30%. After cutting, the curds are cooked and stirred. This step further promotes whey expulsion through thermal syneresis. Syneresis is the process where the protein network contracts, squeezing out liquid. Heat accelerates this by increasing protein-protein interactions and reducing the water-holding capacity of the gel. Soft cheeses like Brie are cooked to only 32 degrees Celsius, while hard cheeses like Gruyere are cooked to 52 degrees or higher. The temperature directly controls the final moisture content. The curds are cooked for 30 to 90 minutes depending on the cheese type, with constant gentle stirring to prevent the pieces from matting together and to ensure even whey expulsion. After draining the whey, salt is added to the curds. But salt does much more than add flavor. It has multiple critical functions. Salt draws out additional moisture through osmosis. When salt dissolves on the curd surface, it creates a high solute concentration that pulls water out of the cheese. Salt inhibits pathogenic and spoilage bacteria by reducing water activity. Most harmful bacteria cannot grow at salt concentrations above 5%. Salt also modulates enzyme activity during aging. It slows down proteolysis, the breakdown of proteins, allowing for controlled flavor development over months or years. Water activity A sub W equals the vapor pressure of water in the cheese divided by the vapor pressure of pure water. Salt reduces this value, making water less available for microbial growth. Aging or affinage is where cheese develops its complex flavors and textures. This involves enzymatic breakdown of proteins and fats. Proteolysis is the breakdown of long casein chains into shorter peptides and free amino acids. This creates savory umami flavors. Enzymes from residual rennet, starter bacteria, and added molds all contribute. Proteins are first broken into peptides by proteases, then peptides are broken into individual amino acids by peptidases. Lipolysis is the breakdown of milk fats by lipase enzymes. This produces free fatty acids, particularly short-chain fatty acids like butyric and caproic acid, which give aged cheeses their characteristic pungent aromas. Here's a fascinating question. Why does aged Parmesan develop those crunchy white crystals that people love? These aren't salt crystals. The crystals are actually tyrosine, an amino acid that becomes concentrated during aging. As proteins break down, tyrosine is released but has low solubility in the low moisture environment of Parmesan. Tyrosine has a solubility of only about 0.4 grams per liter at 25 degrees Celsius. In aged Parmesan with 24 to 36 months of aging, tyrosine concentration exceeds this, causing crystallization. Environmental conditions during aging are precisely controlled. Let's understand why temperature and humidity matter so much. Most cheeses age at temperatures between 4 and 15 degrees Celsius. Warmer temperatures accelerate enzymatic reactions but increase the risk of undesired microbial growth. Relative humidity is kept high, typically 80 to 95%, to prevent the cheese surface from drying out and cracking. Too low humidity causes moisture loss and rind problems. Too high risks mold growth. The sweet spot for most cheeses is around 85% relative humidity. This balances moisture retention with preventing spoilage. Let's compare two very different cheeses to see how these principles create distinct products: mozzarella and Parmesan. Mozzarella is a fresh cheese with about 50 to 60% moisture. It's made using thermophilic cultures and heated to 38 degrees Celsius. The curds are stretched in hot water, creating its characteristic fibrous texture. Parmesan is aged for 12 to 36 months or longer, has only 30% moisture, and is cooked to 55 degrees Celsius. The extended aging allows extensive proteolysis and flavor development. Due to its high moisture content, mozzarella has a higher yield, about 1 kilogram of cheese per 7 liters of milk. Parmesan, being much drier, requires about 16 liters of milk per kilogram of cheese. The extensive whey removal and moisture loss during aging reduce the yield significantly. Calcium plays a crucial structural role that's often overlooked. Let's examine how calcium ions affect cheese texture. Casein micelles contain colloidal calcium phosphate that forms bridges between protein molecules. These calcium bridges create the three-dimensional network that gives cheese its structure. Without sufficient calcium, the protein gel is weak and cannot form proper cheese structure. This is why adding calcium chloride is sometimes necessary, especially if using pasteurized milk. Pasteurization causes some calcium phosphate to precipitate, reducing the amount of soluble calcium by 10 to 20%. This weakens curd formation, which is why cheesemakers often add calcium chloride to pasteurized milk. Blue cheeses like Roquefort and Gorgonzola represent a fascinating application of microbiology, where we intentionally introduce mold into the cheese. The characteristic blue veins come from Penicillium roqueforti mold. This mold is either mixed into the curds or introduced through holes pierced into the cheese after initial aging. The mold needs oxygen to grow, which is why the cheese is pierced with needles. These channels allow air to penetrate the interior, enabling the mold to spread throughout. The mold produces lipase that break down fats, creating the pungent, spicy flavors characteristic of blue cheese. The blue-green color comes from spores produced by the mold. The mold's lipase enzymes produce methyl ketones, like 2-pentanone and 2-heptanone. These compounds have very low odor thresholds and create the sharp, spicy aroma of blue cheese. The final pH of cheese dramatically affects its texture. Let's understand this relationship quantitatively. Most cheeses finish with a pH between 4.6 and 5.6. The exact value depends on the amount of lactic acid produced by starter cultures. Low pH cheeses, with pH from 4.6 to 4.9, have a crumbly texture because acid dissolves some of the calcium phosphate bridges. This weakens the protein network. Examples include feta and chèvre. Medium pH cheeses, from 5.0 to 5.3, maintain enough calcium bridges to be firm but remain sliceable. This includes cheddar and Gouda. Higher pH cheeses, from 5.4 to 5.6, have the most intact protein network and develop elastic, stretchy textures. Swiss cheese is a good example. Let's do a back-of-the-envelope calculation of the energy required to produce 1 kilogram of cheddar cheese, considering heating and cooling steps. First, we heat approximately 10 liters of milk from refrigeration temperature of 4 degrees to processing temperature of 32 degrees. Using the specific heat of milk, which is 3.9 kilojoules per kilogram per degree, the energy is 10 kilograms times 3.9 times 28 degrees, which equals 1092 kilojoules. We need to maintain this temperature for about 2 hours during coagulation and cutting. Assuming 15% heat loss, this requires additional energy input. Additional energy for heat loss is approximately 164 kilojoules. After pressing, the cheese must be cooled to aging temperature, though this energy is often recoverable. Total thermal energy requirement is roughly 1.3 megajoules per kilogram of cheddar produced. This doesn't include mechanical energy for stirring or pressing, which adds perhaps another 0.2 megajoules. This is a common question, especially for vegetarians. Can you make aged cheese without animal rennet? The answer is yes, but with some differences. There are microbial rennets produced by fungi like Rhizomucor miaceae and plant-based coagulants from thistle or fig trees. These work similarly to animal rennet but have different specificities. Microbial rennet tends to be more proteolytic, meaning it breaks down proteins more aggressively during aging. This can cause bitterness in long-aged cheeses, so it's better suited for younger cheeses. Genetically engineered chymosin, where the cow gene is inserted into microbes, is now widely used. It performs identically to calf rennet, but is suitable for vegetarians and more consistent. Food safety in cheese relies heavily on controlling water activity. Let's understand this crucial parameter. Water activity below 0.90 inhibits most pathogenic bacteria. Hard-aged cheeses typically achieve values of 0.85 to 0.88, making them very safe even without refrigeration. Fresh cheeses like mozzarella or ricotta have water activity above 0.95, allowing bacterial growth. This is why they must be refrigerated and consumed quickly. The combination of salt addition and moisture loss during aging progressively reduces water activity, making the cheese safer over time. Let's end with the fascinating science behind Swiss cheese holes, or eyes as they're technically called. Swiss cheese uses Propionibacterium freudenreichi in addition to standard starter cultures. This bacterium ferments lactic acid into carbon dioxide gas, acetic acid, and propionic acid. 3 molecules of lactic acid are converted to 2 molecules of propionic acid, plus acetic acid, carbon dioxide, and water. The carbon dioxide gas cannot escape from the cheese and forms pockets that grow into eyes. The elastic protein network of Swiss cheese, due to its higher pH, allows these bubbles to expand without bursting. The size and distribution of eyes depends on aging temperature and time. Warmer aging temperatures around 20 to 24 degrees Celsius during the eye formation stage promote larger eyes. The propionic acid produced during this fermentation gives Swiss cheese its characteristic nutty, slightly sweet flavor. This same acid is what gives Swiss cheese its long shelf life due to its antimicrobial properties. Let's summarize the key scientific principles we've covered in cheesemaking. Coagulation, whether by acid or rennet, creates a protein gel by neutralizing charges or cleaving protective proteins. Cooking temperature determines moisture expulsion rate and final cheese hardness through syneresis. Bacterial cultures not only acidify the milk, but also produce flavor compounds during fermentation and aging. Aging develops complex flavors through enzymatic breakdown of proteins into peptides and amino acids, and fats into fatty acids. Precise control of temperature, humidity, pH, and salt concentration ensures both flavor development and microbiological safety. While we've explored several cheese types, these fundamental principles apply across the entire spectrum of cheese varieties, from soft, fresh cheeses to hard-aged varieties. Understanding the science allows cheesemakers to manipulate these parameters to create the incredible diversity we see in cheese.